Hey guys, my name is James Walsh, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter here on YouTube. I want to thank you for finding us. Please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. And if you get the chance on this video, click the like button. If you do, it'll turn blue. Check it out. Also, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all this great content available in MP3 format, our online store that'll keep us going free and clear, daily news updates, as well as all the information from the history of professional wrestling you could possibly ever want. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com online right now. Without any delay, let's get to your interview here on the Wrestling Epicenter. Here is a classic interview from 2004 with Vince Russo, where he discusses Eric Bischoff and the April 10th joining of powers between himself and Eric Bischoff, as well as his new, at that point, Christian book, Forgiven. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Vince Russo's an interesting character. Even as I'm saying his name, I can feel my New Jersey, New York roots coming out, and I'm fighting my accent from coming out from when I was a kid. Anyway, this is a real interesting interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know he does his own podcast now, and he's as honest could be on that podcast, and this is as honest as he was then. So it's interesting to hear how his perspective has changed over the past 15, 16, 17 years. And without any further delay, let's get to the classic Vince Russo interview here on Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Interactive Interview on the interactiveinterview.com, as we're joined here today with Vince Russo. Vince, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
It's great to have you on. First things first, we saw that you have a new website up. Would you like to plug that right away?
Absolutely. I do have a new website, and it is a Christian website that I'm very excited about, and I'm very blessed that it's up. And it is VinceRussoForgiven.com. And, anybody that would like to come in, we'd love to have you there.
Absolutely. We had these questions down the line, but we'll ask you now, if you don't mind talking about it. What led to you finding religion and finding God?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you asked that, and I'm glad you phrased it in that way, because I think there's a misconception of people finding religion and finding God. I think the misconception is that God finds you, and God found me, and I think, I really believe I experienced something that many of us will experience sometime in our lives, and that's basically when I came to the end of myself, and when I came to the end of my road. And, I came to the realization, at 42 years old, that I couldn't do it on my own anymore, because I had been on a journey for 42 years, and I was very successful, and I made more money than I ever dreamed of in the wrestling business. A beautiful wife. I've got 3 great kids, but, at 42 years old, I was miserable, and I was depressed, and I was unhappy, and, at that point in my life, I just couldn't accept that this is what it was all about, and that this is what life was all about. And it was really when I reached that point in my life, which I really think was the end of, my line, that God came to me, and, he made sure that I listened to what he had to say. So, it wasn't something at all that I was out there seeking. I mean, not at all. It was just a life change. And, when God came calling, quite frankly, I didn't have much say in the matter.
Absolutely. Well, we usually go into chronological order, so we'll just throw the first question to you, or the first question in order to you being, were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh, absolutely. I was a wrestling fan growing up, but, one thing I always like to say, and I always like to get straight, is the first time I ever saw wrestling, the very first time, I immediately was attracted to the entertainment aspect of it. Even when I was very young, when I first saw it, probably, about 12 years old or something like that, nobody had to tell me that wrestling was fake. I mean, for some reason, it was just quite obvious to me. But
Right.
the one thing that attracted me to it was just the entertainment aspect of it. And, you know, some of those early people that I was attracted to at the beginning, I remember the first people I ever saw were the Valiant Brothers.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you talk about entertaining. And, you know, some of my other favorites back then was, you know, the Big Cat Ernie Ladd and, you know, Chief J Strongbow. And, you know, from day one, I always looked at wrestling from the entertainment aspect. And that's what got me interested in.
The first time I ever got a chance to see you on TV was on a show called The Livewire. You were Vic Venom back then, and you did Livewire. That show seemed to be way before its time. How did you enjoy being the on-air heel commentator role at that point?
Well, I liked it, but I'll tell you what wasn't easy. It was ahead of its time. And, you know, there were, you know, I hate to use the word shoot, but let's just say when I was on that show, I was being honest about a lot of things. And what made it difficult is there were a couple of times when I did the show when Vince McMahon was in the studio. And, you know, I mean, I was really going out on the limb here because, you know, this is when, you know, we still had characters and everything was very much kayfabe and, you know, the attitude, you know, hadn't started yet. And, you know, here I was, you know, on this show, you know, kind of shooting straight with the fans and telling the fans, you know, what was really happening. And I knew I was taking a chance because, you know, Vince was there. But, you know, I really had a belief, you know, even back then that this was the route, you know, the business needed to go in order to survive. And, you know, I really believe that in my heart. So that's basically why I stuck to that, because I really felt that at that point the business needed to be going to that next level.
Where did the name Vic Venom come from?
Well, Vic Venom, I mean, before Vic Venom, I had a radio show and I was Vicious Vincent. So Vic Venom was kind of a spin-off of Vicious Vincent. You know, they were pretty much one and the same.
How did you actually end up going, basically from working for the WWF magazine into being involved in the creative side?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I was writing for the WWF magazine, I hated the product. I mean, I thought the product at that time was atrocious. And we're talking about a time, and this isn't anything against the individuals. I mean, not at all. So please I don't want anybody to take that out of context. But, I mean, this is when there were characters, you know, like T.L. Hopper and the Goon and Freddie Joe Floyd.
How about Mantar?
Mantar, right?
Right.
And the thing is, again, it's nothing against those individuals at all, but it was almost like time was passing the WWF by. I mean, they were still in a period that society was way past. So basically what I started doing in the magazine was I kind of started creating my own angles just to keep me interested. And, you know, I created my own angles, and, you know, we went more to the shoot side of it. We went to the Raw magazine. And, you know, I mean, I'll be honest, again, it was just really taking a chance because I love the business, and I really believed that this is where the business needed to go. So again, it was taking a chance. It was doing something different. And, you know, from there, you know, I guess my reputation from the magazine and the magazine being different and whatnot, you know, I finally caught the attention of Vince. And, you know, once Vince gave me that opportunity to work with him, you know, the rest is just pretty much history.
Now, when people think of Vince Russo, quite often they think of basically you bringing to the table for WWE a lot of things that hadn't been brought to the product before. And a lot of people, when they think of the influx of divas and swearing to the product, they think of you. Would you say that maybe those assumptions are correct?
Yeah, they are. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not proud of that today. I mean, being a Christian today, you know, I mean, my views on things are 180. I mean, you know, I would not do those same things today. But as far as the, the violence and the sexuality and the language, and I take responsibility for that. I mean, I don't point the finger at anybody else, but what people, what's difficult for wrestling fans to understand is wrestling is a business. Vince McMahon was my boss, so my job was to get him the highest ratings that I possibly could. And I knew what the people were into. I knew what the kids were into. I knew what people were going to watch. And like I said, even though today I wouldn't go that route, back then, I had a job to do, and my job was to get the highest ratings possible. And, quite frankly, I was going to try to get those ratings by any means necessary.
There was an angle that was done that Bob Ryder wrote an article about, and I know it got under your skin at the time, with the crucifixion scene with the Stone Cold Steve Austin. Given what you just said, and I think you may have just answered the question anyway, do you have any regrets about that at all, and do you still stand by...
I mean, I hate to interrupt you, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I regret that more than anything. I mean, more than anything I was responsible for, or I wrote and I did, I regret the crucifixion, scene with Taker and Austin more than anything else. But the reality of the situation is, at that point, I didn't understand the crucifixion. I mean, I didn't know who Jesus Christ was. And at that point, it meant nothing to me. I mean, absolutely nothing. I didn't think twice. But, today, being a Christian and being saved and studying the life of Jesus and, sitting there and watching the Passion, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that, I was responsible for that. I mean, and that is probably the thing that I no doubt regret the most.
Here's a question coming in from the forums, and it's a big fan of yours. He wanted us to let you know that you're actually his hero. He wanted us to ask you this question, and it's pretty blanket, but it's going to take us to the end of your WWF days, and that is, given all the angles you did with the WWF, did you have any that was your favorite and any that was your least favorite?
Well, my favorite by far, and I think this would surprise a lot of people, my favorite was the Rock heel turn at the Survivor Series. And the reason why I say that is because that one incident, that one night at the Survivor Series was in the makings for about 3 to 6 months. Wow. And everything we did with The Rock, everything he said and every action and everything was just so carefully calculated and carefully crafted for 3 months building up to that one night. And the thing that was amazing to me is when it happened that night at the Survivor Series, and I had I was lucky to be in the house at the time. When it first happened, there was silence in the arena. And the reason being is that nobody saw it coming. But once it happened, and then people started, putting together, the last 3 months and everything leading up to it, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. But, I'm most proud of that because to me, that was writing at its best. I mean, there was a story, there was a build-up, and everything meant something. And that was by far, the best angle, that I think that I was involved in.
And Poncho Jones, who asked that one, also wants to ask, what are your thoughts looking back on the Billionaire Ted skits?
Well, I thought those were ridiculous when they were happening. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't like them then. I don't like them now. I just, I don't like to use the word desperation, but, I was involved in those. I think I was in like 1 or 2 of them, and, I didn't like them back then. I don't like them now. I mean, I wasn't writing at the time, and I wasn't really involved in the creative, and I mean, if I was, I would have just tried of a different way to get the point across. I think a lot of that was just a personal attack at Ted Turner, and I didn't know Ted Turner, And I just, me personally, I just felt that was wrong.
At this point, you jumped ship, or at least this was late 1999. You jumped ship to the WCW. Was there any reason behind your jump?
I'd say the number one reason was that I honestly felt that I had accomplished all I possibly could accomplish at the WWF. Back then, I mean, we reached a peak where we couldn't go any higher. I mean, in my professional opinion, we had gone as high as we were going to get. And I am a guy that was always, I mean, not anymore now, but I was a guy back then that, I thrived on challenge. It was always the challenge, the challenge, the challenge. And, reaching the success we did, that challenge was no longer there for me. So basically what I looked at was, WCW and where they were and the position they were in, and I had the opportunity to try to go there and do it all over again. And, that was the most appealing thing.
Were you prepared for the politics that were involved in WCW?
No. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't stupid. I knew there were politics, right, but I was nowhere near prepared for the level of politics, because I didn't have to deal with that at the WWF. And part of the reason was because I was protected by Vince. And, Vince always took care of me, and, Vince really made sure that nobody really messed with me. When I went to WCW, I was on my own. And, I mean, there was just a sea of people from day one who just wanted my head. And, I mean, I realized that a week into the job. And, there was no protection. I mean, I was open game. And, I never thought it would be, the level that it was.
Can you walk us through or tell us what happened the weekend of Sold Out 2000 when everything went down with you departing from WCW and subsequently Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and all those guys leaving WCW as well?
Well, I can't tell you all that because I wasn't there.
Right.
I can tell you that I'll never forget. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was at WCW for 3 months, and I was miserable. And that same day, I was on the phone with my attorney, telling him, I don't care what you have to do. You've got to get me out of this deal. I don't care what I've got to do. I mean, that's how miserable I was after 3 months. And it's just ironic because that same day, I had a meeting with Bill Bush, and I think Hogan was supposed to be there, and Flair was supposed to be there, and we were supposed to talk about an angle and whatnot. But of course, when I got to WCW, nobody was there but Bill Bush. Now, keep in mind, I was on the phone with my attorney an hour earlier telling him, you need to get me out of this.
Right.
So basically, at that point, Bill Bush, sits me down and says, Vince, we want to take a change in direction. And, you've got to keep in mind now, in the first 3 months that I was there, before I came on board, the last rating that the WCW did, and it was the show where Benoit and Bret Hart had a 3-segment match.
Right.
The rating of that show was a 2.6. 3 months, when I got called into this meeting, the rating was up to a 3.5. So 2.6 to 3.5 in a matter of 3 months. So now they're telling me they wanted to take a change in direction, and I'm sitting there knowing full well this is all politics. I mean, it was so blatantly clear to me. And, Bill Bush basically said to me, we want you to be a part of a committee. Meanwhile, I was hired as the guy in charge.
Right.
So as soon as he said that to me, I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, I saw that as my out. And I almost saw that as, well, look, you hired me to do this, and now you're saying a part of my, being a part of a committee. And I was really looking at that as, oh, man, thank God they're going to breach my contract here,
Right.
So I basically just looked at Bill Bush, and I said, well, thank you very much, Bill. I said, but that's not what what I was hired to do. So I'm really not interested in being a part of a committee. I said, so, I'm going to go home. I said, contact me, let me know what we're going to do about my contract, but, I'm really not interested in what you've just presented me with. And I went home. And, that weekend when the pay-per-view went down, I mean, that's when all that stuff broke down with, Shane and Guerrero and those guys. But, I mean, I wasn't there for that, so I really don't know, firsthand how that went down.
When you returned with Eric Bischoff, how did you two get along?
We didn't get along. And, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to speak for Eric, but neither one of us trusted each other. I mean, it was just that simple. I mean, Eric, from a personal level, never did anything to me. I can't say a bad word about him. I mean, it wasn't like that. But, I mean, I can say, for whatever reason, probably because it is the wrestling business and, you just have a tendency to become paranoid, I never trusted Eric. I mean, I never trusted him from day one, and I'm sure he would say the same exact thing for me. But in the situation, Eric and I didn't have a choice. I mean, we were put in that situation to work together, and, we had to go out there and work together. And, again, it wasn't the best situation for me. I'm sure it wasn't the best situation for Eric. And, as things turned out, it just didn't work out for anybody.
What are you comfortable telling us about Bash at the Beach 2000 and your incident with Hulk Hogan?
I'm not comfortable really talking about it at all. But what I will say is that entire incident was nothing more than an incident about money, an incident about greed, an incident about ego. It was nothing more than everything about the wrestling business that I hate. And I'm not going to go into detail about it. I have nothing bad in the world to say about Hulk Hogan. I understand why it happened the way it did, but it happened for all the wrong reasons. And that's basically all I can really say about it.
In TNA, when they were talking about bringing Hogan in for the last year's pay-per-view, I don't even know if you were around at this point, but were you afraid of any confrontations with Hogan?
No, I was around, and they told me to go home because, Hogan and his attorney wouldn't come if I was there. And that was fine with me, but, I had no problem working with him. I would work with Hulk Hogan tomorrow. I've never let I've never let anything get in the way of business. I mean, never. And I mean, the bottom line is I would do something with Hulk Hogan tomorrow if that were necessary. I don't dislike the guy. I give him all the credit in the world for putting the wrestling business on the map. He's an icon. He's a legend. I really feel bad that he feels the way about me that he does. But me personally, I don't have a hatred bone in my body for Hulk Hogan whatsoever.
Now, many of your critics, mostly on the internet, pick on you for becoming the WWE World Champion. How would you answer those critics?
So those are the wrestling purists. I mean, and those are the people that sometimes forget wrestling is fake. And, like I said, from day one, when I was going back to me being a 12-year-old kid, I always viewed wrestling as entertainment. And everything I wrote came from an entertainment aspect. And, there are people that are going to like the entertainment side of it, and there are people that are going to like the wrestling purist side of it. And, I mean, those are the people that have a problem with it. But I don't have a problem with it. I would do the same thing tomorrow. I thought it was a good story. I thought it was good entertainment. And, I don't regret doing that for 1 second.
When were you officially finished with WCW?
When my contract ran out. I mean, my contract ran out. They sold to WWF before my contract ran out. So, my contract was up in, I think, October 2001, and that's when it was officially over.
What was your favorite angle you put on TV for WCW?
the NWO angle would have been really, really good, and it was we were just getting there. We had the plays in place. Mm-hmm. It would have been a real good story, but Bret Hart getting hurt, really, really derailed a lot of plans that I had built up for the first 3 months that I was there. And, if we would have gotten to see that angle through, especially if I would have had Bret, I think it could have been a real good angle. But, we'll never know because Bret got hurt and we were never able to see it through. And, that's just the way it turned out.
And do you have a least favorite angle or a most regrettable angle you put out in WCW?
I really don't. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, being a Christian now, I have a problem with a lot of things. Mm. But, specific angles, I'll be honest, there is nothing that, there is nothing that, I want to phrase this the right way. Being a Christian, I wouldn't do any of that now. Okay, but from a wrestling, just a strict wrestling view, there isn't an angle that I wouldn't have done. I would have done David Arquette. Mm-hmm. I would have done me getting the belt. I didn't have a problem with any angle I did. And I know there are a lot of people that disagree with that, and that's fine. We can, we can debate that all night. But, from a professional level, I'm talking professional, not personal now. From a professional level, I didn't do anything I didn't like.
Right. I get you. Just, you mentioned David Arquette. Can you kind of run us through, how that happened and why it happened and that kind of thing?
Well, it happened because we were in a production meeting the day of the show, and the production meeting broke up, and Tony Schiavone pulled me to the side. And Tony Schiavone said to me, Vince, let me throw something at you. What if David Arquette won the WCW title? And when he said that to me, the first reason why it caught me was because that thought never even crossed my mind. Mm. So he shocked me by saying that. And I was caught by surprise when he said that. And I was like, wow, Tony, I never even thought of that. That might get us some Main Street publicity. We could do it in such a way where he's not going to beat a wrestler. I said, man, that's different. So then what I did, and, of course, the side of the story you never hear, then I called everybody back in the room, and we had all the agents there and the referees and, our little crew, and I bounced the idea off of them. Mm-hmm. And, everyone in the room said what a great idea it would be, and everybody was for it 100%, including those that knock it today. Mm-hmm. So, once I got everybody's feedback and everybody, liked the idea, we went with it. I have no regrets, whatsoever about doing that because, again, I was in it for the entertainment aspect. And also the fact that the following day, there we were, smack on the cover on the entertainment section of USA Today, which we would have never been on if it would have been a straight-up wrestling match. In conjunction with that, the following week, we had Courtney Cox, Kurt Russell, and Kevin Costner cut a promo for us with the WCW title, free of charge, which we would have never gotten that kind of publicity, if we hadn't done that, stunt. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would do the same thing over tomorrow. I don't think that was a mistake. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it did exactly what we wanted it to do. But I think it's very unfortunate how so many people agreed to the angle, but at the end of the day, everybody pointed the finger at me. And that's fine, because I was ultimately responsible, and I don't have a problem with that, whatsoever. But, I can tell you, that wasn't just a Vince Russo idea. That was a Vince Russo and 30 other people idea. And, again, a lot of times that part of the story never gets told because, again, it's the wrestling business. So, everybody wants to put the heat on me, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. I know what really happened, and I know what went down, and I mean, that's cool.
Now, you returned to WWE for an extremely short stay in 2002. It seemed almost like it was on the website one day and then off the website the next day. Why was the stay so short that time?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I went to the WWF. I sat in. I went to the WWF, and first of all, I walked into a completely different place. Mm-hmm. This was not the same place I had left about 2.5 years ago. Everything had changed, and I sat in with a group of writers, and I spent about 6 hours with them. And when I left that room, there was no doubt in my mind that this was not going to work. And, sure enough, Vince called me the next day, and, Vince basically said the same thing to me. Vince, this isn't going to work. And I knew it wasn't going to work. And that was it. That was it. So we just, we decided not to go forward.
Is there any truth to the rumor that you named TNA?
I did name TNA. Yeah, total nonstop action, because at that time, mm-hmm. the show was going to be TNA, and that's originally what was what was on the table. It was going to be risque. It was on pay-per-view. We were going to do a lot of things that they couldn't do on WWF, and yeah, I mean that's when the product was sold to me, that's how it was sold to me. So. Yeah, I did come up with that name.
Do you think it fits today still, or do you think it would be?
No. I mean, it fits today if you want it to be total nonstop action. I mean, there's some great athletes in TNA. They do have some great matches. So from that viewpoint, it fits. But again, the original intent it's something completely different now.
Now, of course. What many people may remember when you think of Vince Russo and TNA will be the time that Jeff Jarrett brutalized you on one of the pay-per-views. What did you think of that, and how did you go about and enjoy that whole segment?
Man, that's tough, and I've never really spoken about this before. You know why? Because nobody's ever really asked me. But I mean, I can tell you, he brutalized me, and I can tell you. That week, my entire body was black and blue. I mean, I never, ever, ever in my life took a beating like that. Ever. I mean, not even close. And, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of built-up hostility in Jeff towards me. I mean, there's no question about it. And, every bit of it, came out that night because, I mean, he beat me like I never got beat in my life. But, the thing is, Jeff and I have that kind of a relationship. I mean, we've had that kind of a relationship for the past 10 years. And, the kind of relationship I have with Jeff is, it's very honest. I mean, it is brutally honest. Jeff doesn't like a lot of the things that I say to him. I don't like a lot of the things that he says to me. A lot of times we aren't on the same page. We have different mindsets. We have different feelings. We have different ideas. And, it's been touch and go for 10 years. I mean, it's been that way for 10 years. A lot of the sex angle was real. I mean, there was a lot of hostility between me and Jeff. But the difference is when push comes to shove, and when you get beyond the wrestling business, and when you get into our hearts as human beings, there's a love between Jeff and I that you don't find in this business. I mean, I'm talking about a sincere love and a sincere friendship. And it's because of that love and friendship that, we've been able to get through a very, very, very rocky road, probably for the last 2.5 years in TNA. Because like I said, when you push the business aside, man to man, I love the guy. I love the guy. I love his family. I love his wife. I love his kids. No, I don't agree with a lot of things he does on a business level. But that's a matter of my opinion. It's not a matter of me being right and Jeff being wrong. It's my opinion. But like I said, underneath it all, I love the guy. So, it's my relationship with Jeff has probably been by far the most challenging relationship I've ever had in my life with anybody. But what makes it so difficult is my genuine feelings for him.
Mm-hmm. One question I just want to shoot by you now. What are your thoughts on TNA now using former WWE names that are now free agents, such as, for example, Jeff Hardy, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash?
You mean, using them now?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it as long as it's, the right talent. And again, I mean, that's just my opinion. But I mean, I think there are some guys that can help, but I also think there are some guys that can hurt. And that's just my opinion. So, I just think you've got to look at every case differently, and you've got to really, look at what every case is going to bring to the table. But, I mean, I'm not involved in that. I mean, that's not up to me. That's, a lot of that's up to Jeff, and a lot of that is up to, the people from Panda who run the business end of it. But, again, if it were me, I would just really be looking at it each case by case scenario.
Mm-hmm. Now, internet rumors, of course, run wild about you pretty much any time you put your face on TV and spotlight nowadays. But people say that your relationship may be rocky with TNA. So can you clear it up? What is your relationship like with the company?
My relationship isn't rocky with TNA at all. I gave my notice. I mean, I'm done. The pay-per-view November 7th is my last show. And, like I said, Jeff and I will be friends till one of us dies. I mean, that goes without saying. So there's nothing rocky. I mean, it's cool. I gave my notice. I told Jeff man to man, friend to friend, buddy to buddy, work at a boss. And, it is what it is. And, right now, I'm finishing up my next couple of weeks, doing whatever they need me to do, whatever Jeff wants me to do, no problem. But, it's really not rocky because I kind of gave my notice,
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to close out with word associations, if that's okay with you. If you have a story, that's fine. If you have a one-word answer, that's fine, too, whatever you want to give. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. First name on the list is Todd Pettengill.
If I had a beef with Todd Pettengill, and again, it was nothing personal, but from a wrestling professional view, and you've got to understand something, and I please hope you understand something. This is Vince talking. This is Vince reflecting on the Vince at the time. It's
right.
Not who I am today, but at the time, the only problem I had with Todd Pettengill was I was a real wrestling fan, and I loved the wrestling business.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel Todd loved the wrestling business, and I didn't feel Todd respected the wrestling business, and I felt that it was just a job to Todd. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. When I say that now, and I look at that now, yeah, it was just a job for Todd. I mean, it was a gig, and he was getting money, and he was getting paid, and he was good at what he did. But back then, because he wasn't a fan like I was, I took it personally. But that was wrong on my part. I mean, looking back now, that was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. How about somebody who was your right-hand man in WCW, who unfortunately we lost, Kurt Hennig?
Yeah, I loved working with Kurt. I mean, he was one of the guys that, I mean, man, when we had to do pre-tapes and interviews and stuff, I mean, I would just look at him and crack up. I mean, he was just that kind of a guy. And I mean, it was I was devastated, for a while, when his death, just came like that out of nowhere. Man, he was always nice to me. He was always a gentleman to me. He always did what I asked him to do. And, I mean, I was always a huge, huge fan of his.
How about, and I hate to hit you with another downer, but how about somebody else we lost that you work with in WCW? That was a shock to me, Miss Elizabeth.
That, too. Elizabeth wasn't crazy about me. I mean, I'll be honest with you. She did not like me. And that's okay. I mean, not everybody's going to like you. I mean, when you're the boss and you're asking talent to do some things, not everybody's going to like you. It's very difficult. But, I mean, I can tell you, I was a huge fan of hers. And, man, it's, they're really, I don't know if since her there's really been a female to kind of reach the level that she did, back in the late 80s. I mean, she was just beautiful. She was gorgeous. She was a lady. She brought, class to the business. And, again, it was just a tragic story. But the sad thing is, it's always the business that takes the life of these people. It's always what the business does to them that takes their life. And that, that to me is just the tragic part of it.
I have one more, and I know Daniel has a couple, so I'm going to give you this one, and I know it's somebody who's also reborn. How about Sting?
Man, Sting, I tell you, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be able to have the relationship with Sting when I worked with him that I do now. Man, when I became saved, he was a huge, huge influence on me. He was kind of there from the beginning. And I mean, man, I went back to his hotel room one night and we spent hours and hours and hours and hours just talking about, our beliefs in Christianity and Jesus Christ. And man, I never ever dreamed I would have that kind of relationship with the guy. And I was just so gifted and so blessed that I was able to meet up with him again, when I was in a much different place. And I really got to spend that time with him. It was just a great, great influence on my life.
One I've got for you, Ed Ferrara.
Man, Ed right now, I just spoke to Ed last night, and Ed and I right now are better friends than we've ever been in our relationship since I've known him. There were a lot of rocky roads between Ed and I, but again, the bottom line was it was the business, and it's what the wrestling business does to people. Now that Ed and I are both away from the business, I'm on my way out, and Ed's been away from it. Now we can be friends, and now we can really enjoy each other, and we can enjoy the things, that brought us together. And, again, that's the tragedy of the wrestling business. There are people that you really love and that you genuinely care about and that you genuinely like, but it's what the business does to you. And it's the reason why, when I did become born again and when I did become a Christian and when I did hand my life over to God, it is the reason why I had to get out of the wrestling business because, as a Christian, I just could no longer deal with that negativity. And, like I said, it's just amazing to me now, being away from it and separating it from myself, how now I really get the opportunity to be friends with and enjoy these people who I genuinely cared about.
Jim Ross.
I just finished working. I just finished the book, and the book is going to be like my website. It's going to be called Forgiven, and it's a very, very interesting book because what I did was I took a manuscript that I wrote 2 years ago. I more or less kept the manuscript intact, and I commented on myself. Now that I'm a Christian, I commented on myself and my actions of 2 years ago.
Wow.
And in the book, the one person that I owe the greatest apology to of any individual in my life is Jim Ross. And I was horrible to Jim Ross, and I'm ashamed of the way I treated Jim Ross. I'm ashamed of the things I did. I'm ashamed of the disrespect I showed. I'm embarrassed for the kind of person I was when it came to Jim Ross. And in my book, I've made that clear, and part of my book was a public apology to Jim Ross because I was so ignorant, and I was so childish, and I was so immature, and I was horrible to the man. Absolutely horrible. I didn't understand his position. I didn't take a second to put myself in his shoes. I'm embarrassed. And like I said, that was very important for me in the book to be able to tell the entire world that I apologize to this man. He did not deserve anything that I put him through on a personal level, and I would love to be able to have the opportunity to be able to see Jim Ross again and tell Jim Ross that to his face. Because, you know, the Vince Russo who existed 5 years ago is not the same Vince Russo today. And I'm able to look back now and look at all the mistakes and look at all the people I've hurt and look at all the things I shouldn't have done. And Jim Ross is the person I owe the biggest apology to.
And just regarding the book, when might it be out for...
Well, you know, right now, I'll be honest with you. I'll be totally honest with you. I have a publisher right now. You know, I have a contract in my hand right now, but what I'm wrestling with right now is I want to make sure that the book not only goes in mainstream bookstores, I want the book to go in Christian bookstores. I mean, that's really where I want it to go, because it's very important for people to see, you know, what God did in my life. Because if they can see what God did in a life like this, then there's hope for anybody. So, you know, right now, you know, like I said, I have a contract in hand. I have a publisher. I'm just kind of holding off to see if, you know, a Christian publisher comes along, because, like I said, I just want to make sure that the book gets in Christian bookstores. But the way it looks now, you know, from the book, you know, going through the editing and going through the changes and whatnot, we're probably looking at it coming out either the spring or definitely by the summer.
Excellent. Two names I just want to hit you with, the last two, and this is then we'll let you go. We're sorry we went so long. Is Ric Flair.
You know, again, I heard about the comments in his book. I'm real sorry about the way Ric Flair feels about me, but you know, as a Christian now, I can sit here and say I, without a doubt, treated Ric Flair with the utmost respect, because Ric Flair was a legend, and the opportunity that I got to work with Ric Flair, I was blessed to have, and I knew that when it happened. And I mean, again, whatever he feels about me, whatever he thinks, I apologize. I know in my heart that I treated Ric Flair with the utmost respect. I know I did, and I know it was an honor and it was a privilege for me to work with Ric Flair. And, you know, I'm sorry he may feel differently about me, and if I did anything to offend him, I greatly, greatly apologize. But, I mean, it was an honor for me to be able to have that time to work with him.
And the final name, I'm sure you can predict it, Vince McMahon.
Man, that's just really, really, really tough for me, because I was a lot closer to Vince than people really understand. I mean, a lot closer to him. And I cared tremendously for Vince and his entire family. I mean, I cared for them from the bottom of my heart, and I still do. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I didn't. I'd be lying to you if I told you that sometimes there's a part of me that feels like there's some kind of unfinished business there. And I'm not talking about going back and writing their TV. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about from a personal side. I just feel like there is some kind of unfinished business there. I feel like there is some kind of a void there, and something is sitting there that just isn't right with me. And again, I don't know if that's God's work. I don't know what that is, but I've always felt this sense of something being unfinished. And, you know, I hope in the future that somehow, some way, you know, I will be able to put a period at the end of that sentence. But, you know, right now, for whatever reason, and a reason that I can't explain, I don't feel like I can do that. But, you know, I can't say anything negative about Vince. I can't, because I don't feel anything negative towards him. But, you know, again, working that closely with somebody at the time, yeah, it was love-hate at the time. But, you know, now, you know, not being around him, you know, for the last however many years it's been, I miss him, you know, more than, you know, I like not being around him. So, you know, again, you know, who knows? I mean, who knows why things happened the way they did? But who knows? I mean, that to me is still a big question mark.
And of course, on your website now, people can read a column from Terry Taylor,
Right.
VinceRussoForgiven.com. Can we expect to see maybe anything from anybody else in the wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and that's what that's there for. I love Terry, boy. I mean, he's turned out to be one of my greatest friends in the wrestling business. You know, if not my best friend in the wrestling business. And you know, Terry and I have so much in common because he's been saved, and in my early stages, I mean, he was there for me, and he tutored me, and he was a mentor to me, and that's exactly what that's for. I mean, I do want to bring other people that have become Christians on there. I mean, you know, the first name that comes to mind is, you know, AJ Styles, you know, who, you know, I had the privilege of, you know, just a couple of weeks ago going to church with AJ and his wife, and I mean, boy, you talk about a guy, you know, that's a Christian and inside out, and, you know, lives his entire life to do the right thing. I love that kid like he was my own kid, and I can't say enough good things about AJ, but yeah, I mean, I hope one day I can get, you know, Sting to come on there and do something, and I've not had the opportunity to sit down and spend time with Ted DiBiase, which I want to, and I look forward to doing. I mean, it's ironic. I worked with Ted a lot, and we spent a lot of time together, but you know, now, you know, on the level that we're at, you know, I can't wait for the opportunity to see him and just be able to spend some time with him. But, you know, that's what that site's for, you know, the wrestling family, and, you know, those of us who are in the same boat and went through the trials and tribulations that we went through in the wrestling business, and then, you know, really just came to the conclusion that it's not about us. And it's not about me. It's a much bigger picture than that. And, you know, it's about God, and it's all about Him. And, you know, like I said, I think there's gonna come to a point in the lives of many of these guys where they're gonna come to the end of their life, and they're gonna achieve the accolades and the money and the goals and the spotlight and everything they ever dreamed of. But at the end of the day, they're going to feel empty, and they're going to feel a void, and they're going to realize that something is missing from their life, and that something that is missing is Jesus, because you can't do it without Him. And it took me 42 years to figure that out, and I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be here tonight telling you those things. But, you know, like I said, it was a life change for me, and I think it's an experience that at one point in our life, we're all going to be faced with, and it's, you know, you can either accept Him or deny Him. I mean, that choice is up to you.
Right.
I've accepted Him, and by accepting Him, you know, it's completely changed my life.
Well, this has been an eye-opening interview for me. I can't tell you what an honor it is to have the opportunity to speak with you, and we can't thank you enough for your time. We invite everybody to check out www.vincerussoforgiven.com, and once again, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, guys, and I mean, good luck with everything you do from here on in.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Stay tuned for more from the interactive interview.
Hey guys, my name is James Walsh, and you are listening to the Wrestling Epicenter here on YouTube. I want to thank you for finding us. Please do me a favor and click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. If you get the chance on this video, click the like button. If you do, it'll turn blue. Check it out. Also, check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all this great content available in MP3 format, our online store that'll keep us going free and clear, daily news updates, as well as all the information from the history of professional wrestling you could possibly ever want. Check out WrestlingEpicenter.com online right now. Without any delay, let's get to your interview here on the Wrestling Epicenter.